sorry, we have an amendment or two. Mr. Gonzalez, if you want to go ahead and read those into the record to get them into the bill into the proper posture.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Members, this amendment set is 3197, and what it's doing is at the end of the bill, it's creating a section 2 that says this act shall be cited and referred to as the Daryl King and Jezreel Pulley Security and Safety Act, and that's what this amendment does.
And to put the bill into proper posture, we have a motion to adopt the amendment by Representative Knox. Do we have any objection on the amendment? Hearing none, let the amendment be adopted. Do we have another amendment? Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, we do. This is Amendment Set 3206. It's a set of 3 amendments, and what we'll be doing is the first 2 are technical changes. The third amendment brings in Title 40, the statewide permits for concealed handguns. It goes into present law, which is subsection M. I'm just going to read it all in totality. So present law says no concealed handgun may be carried into and no concealed handgun permit shall be valid or entitle any permit to carry a concealed handgun in any facility, building, location, zone, or area in which firearms are banned by state or federal law. The proposed law to that will say, except in a major entertainment district as provided in this bill, RS 1495.6A, so long as the person has been issued a valid concealed handgun permit pursuant to this section. And that's what this amendment in totality does.
Thank you. Rep, you're offering that amendment or on your amendment? Do you want to? Okay. We have a motion for amendment by Representative Knox. Do we have any objection to the amendment? Hearing no objections, let that amendment be adopted. Councilwoman Moreno and Deputy Chief Gernon, I don't know which one wants to go first.
I'll go ahead and go first. First of all, did you say it's afternoon? Almost afternoon.
Almost
Yeah,
afternoon.
almost afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair Villio and members of the committee. Great to be with you. What the bill now does is in specific areas of New Orleans, it would require a concealed carry permit. And the areas that we're talking about are downtown New Orleans, the French Quarter, and also the Convention Center area. And you all have heard me in this committee before talk about the reason why this is so important to us, and it's really about supporting our New Orleans Police Department. Our New Orleans Police Department really would like to see the whole city exempt from the concealed carry legislation that recently passed, but we certainly support this bill. Our chief supports this bill. The city council supports this bill that would ultimately require now a concealed carry permit in some of our most trafficked areas. These are the very crowded areas within New Orleans. I want to remind you all that, of course, the city of New Orleans is very different than other cities in the state of Louisiana. We roughly have anywhere between 17 and 19 million visitors to the city of New Orleans every year. That's about half of the visitors that come to the state of Louisiana come to the city of New Orleans, and they predominantly are in this 2 square mile area that we're talking about in this legislation. And so what our NOPD is asking is that they want the ability to still really focus in on getting illegal firearms out of these areas and try to prevent any type of incident that could result in mass casualties in these areas. And so I'm hoping to get you all support. Of course, Deputy Chief Gernon can talk about the law enforcement side of it, but I really hope we can support our NOPD to be able to do everything possible to prevent situations from really escalating and creating more deaths within our city. Obviously, you know, what happened over the past couple of days is incredibly tragic, and while this may not have prevented Jezreel's murder, we are very concerned that if we don't put in some type of exemption like this, we would have even more situations like this happening. So we need something to be able to give law enforcement as many tools as possible to get illegal firearms and to make sure to stop those individuals who are trying to provide some type of harm to our community.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Deputy Chief.
Thank you, ma'am. So thank you for allowing me to speak today on behalf of the New Orleans Police Department. During the Mardi Gras season this past year, 111 guns were seized during these carnival celebrations. And most of these seizures just would not have occurred under the new permitless carry law because, as my law enforcement friends up here know, and also former prosecutors and defense attorneys know, no reasonable suspicion for the stop would have existed, and thus no seizure would have occurred. And remember, these seizures are really made at the height of the carnival celebrations within these crowds of thousands of individuals, of people from all over the world. And I want to kind of give you an example of one of these seizures. There was a young man who has previous, he was a convicted felon who was walking towards the parade route. His previous criminal history, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, domestic battery, narcotics, and armed robbery. An officer saw him raise up his shirt, readjust his firearm in his waistband, reconceal the pistol, and continue to walk down towards St. Charles Avenue. At that point, they had a concealed weapon violation. They stopped him. Upon further investigation, they learned he was a convicted felon, and he was also wanted for armed robbery, battery, home invasion, and violation of protective orders. No reasonable suspicion for that stop would have existed under our new law. And so this is kind of the tool that we lost within the city of New Orleans in our fight against violent crime. Violent crime is down significantly this year, but that's because of a lot of hard work by the men and women of the New Orleans Police Department, a lot of cooperation from our community, and a lot of smart policing. So the impact of this law is not to help us. It's actually going to, we think, impact our ability to continue those historic violent crime decreases that we're seeing this year. And we don't really feel like this tool being taken away from us is helpful because there's not a one-size-fits-all approach, right? So what works in Alexandria, where my daughter lives, doesn't work in New Orleans, where I live and work. That's why we really are asking for a carve-out to this law. We would like it for the city of New Orleans, but absent that, for the hospitality area, which includes the DDD, the French Quarter, and I would ask you guys not to forget Frenchmen Street is still a major tourist attraction as well. Failing to enact some carve-out in this regard will really, we think, increase harm to both our officers and our citizens. And so for these reasons, NOPD really is asking you guys to consider creating this sensible carve-out to the permitless carry law for the city of New Orleans in this limited regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Chairman Bacala.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Listen, anytime we talk, I love your city, but it's, the danger there becomes a thought process. It's in the thought process when I visit. And by the way, thank you, former Representative Moreno, for coming today. We all share the same concerns, but I can't help notice when we talk about crime, and I might be getting off just a tad, but I think it's important. Since 2010, there's been an 82% reduction in felony arrests in New Orleans. In 2010, there were 22,351 arrests. In 2023, it dropped from 22,000 plus to 4,246.
Yeah.
That's a contributing factor, all right? And I think another contributing factor is the prosecutions went down for a while. It looks like they're going back up. So I would appreciate the recognition that we have problems in the gun thing. I appreciate that, but I want to take the opportunity because this is about reduction in crime, so I'm using that as a nexus. How do we get it back to the historical levels of law enforcement activity? How do you recover to get it back to the norm of 17 to 20 something thousand arrests rather than 4? Why is policing why are arrests down so much?
May I? So there's a number of things to unpack there. We're talking about the ability to intercede and prevent that crime. So if we can stop a person who's illegally carrying and take that gun out of their hands in that environment, we think that we can impact the future crime that they may or may not commit. As far as comparing 2010 numbers to 2024, it's a different world. In 2010, I was in homicide, and I'll tell you, our numbers were much higher than they are now. So as overall crime has gone down from 2010 to 2024, I think it may not be helpful to compare the numbers of 2010 to 2024. We've also had a decrease in the number of police officers. Less police officers, less individuals that the police officers are able to engage in. So there's a multitude of layers there as to why the number of felony arrests may have gone down, but they're not all driven towards the fact that it's causing crime to go up. It is, as you are well aware, as a former law enforcement officer, extremely complex.
Thank you. And, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Bacala. Representative Fontenot.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Chief, first, I want to thank you for your service, but
Thank you.
in all due respect, sir, I see the chairwoman of the Council of Representatives These are tough questions about a violent city. Why is the superintendent not here to answer these questions?
Yeah. So I was sitting in the superintendent's seat. I'm representing the New Orleans Police Department this morning.
I'm not quite sure that's good enough for one of the most populous cities where people come for tourism. But let's go to, how many people has your agency arrested for illegal possession of a firearm in a firearm-free zone in the last 5 years?
I wouldn't have that information offhand, sir.
Do you know how many firearms-free zones you have in your city, sir?
Again, not information that I would have offhand.
Okay, it's public record. It's on the New Orleans website. This map says that you have 218 firearms-free zones inside of the city of New Orleans, 218. How many homicides do you think you had in those firearm-free zones?
Again, I think that that would be information I wouldn't be able to give you off the top.
Let me help you again, Chief. Here's a map of all the homicides in 2023 in a firearms-free zone. Do you believe those firearms-free zones help prevent any homicides?
So I'm not familiar with the map that you're talking about as far as firearms-free zones. I'd certainly like to take a look at that before I was forced to comment on it publicly.
Understand. It's on the city's website. You have 218 firearm-free zones right now. You had 193 homicides last year. We talked about guns seized. You said 100 and something guns were seized for Mardi Gras. Were all 100 and something guns seized by NOPD?
That was the NOPD numbers for gun seizures and arrests, yes, sir.
Okay. Do you feel like in any moment that an honest citizen lawfully carrying a firearm stopping a bad guy with a gun, you think that's a bad idea?
In theory, that's not a bad idea, no, sir.
All right. Now I want to finish up with this. You talked about your arrests during Carnival. Or you are aware that under the new law passed by this state, it's still illegal to carry a concealed firearm at a Mardi Gras parade?
No, sir. What we were talking about was not only Mardi Gras parades, but also just the downtown hospitality area as well.
So if we go to the French Quarter Fest, you are aware that it's still illegal to carry a firearm if you have a permit for a special event. No one can carry a firearm at those events.
So we're also looking at just the general day in, day out festivities that occur down there, not just permanent events. 18 million people come to New Orleans. They're not all coming during Mardi Gras and French Quarter Fest.
And I just want to finish, and I'm going to refer back to the maps we started with. But you can see where we feel like, or at least I feel like, that forbidding honest, law-abiding citizens from carrying a firearm, it isn't helping your problem. Your own data shows you got tons of homicides in firearm-free zones, and adding another firearm-free zone that I think infringes on my Second Amendment rights just doesn't appear. The data just doesn't support. Chief, I think I know you. I think you worked homicide for many years.
Many years, yes,
My
sir.
law enforcement career reminds me of that.
We crossed paths, yes,
And I
sir.
think you've done a phenomenal job in a city that's lacking what it needs to get the job done. But preventing law-abiding citizens is not going to help our problem.
Thank you, Rep. Fontenot. Chief, let me just say, with all due respect to my colleague, you're a fine representative here today, and I appreciate your service.
Thank you, ma'am.
Representative Wiley.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So we have one world-class city in the state of Louisiana. I think we would all stipulate to that. That would be Gonzales, Louisiana. Where and we know it's the city of New Orleans. And I've heard this so many times, so many years, that what's good for New Orleans is good for the state of Louisiana. So I think all of us have that passion and want that city to be that city that we want to go enjoy in the safest of environments that you could provide. So I have to tell you this, that when this comes to a vote, and I know there are some of us that are going to oppose this vote. It is a troubling bite of an encroachment of more gun-free zones, all right? And we wrestled with that not long ago with an important bill that we passed. But I would remind you, just for the record, that this body and this legislature, in a crime special session, created, funded, fostered it with this governor that we have, and bought into a plan for New Orleans that included not temporarily assigned troopers that you've enjoyed for so many years, but indeed a new troop NOLA, as it is referred to. So, frankly, the state has stepped up in I think, significant ways. before, during, and now with a little more permanent, sustained presence of additional services for you, Chief.
We appreciate
And,
that.
it's not enough, but it is an effort by the state of Louisiana, and one that I think deserves, I know you acknowledge it, but just deserves mentioning today. That completes it.
And Rep. Wiley, on your point, I believe that Representative Knox really heard the committee and also heard, of course, audience members as well about, adding additional gun-free zones and how the committee really felt about that, which is why I believe his amendment was so important to no longer make this a gun-free zone, but instead have it as it is now, which requires a concealed carry permit. So once again, to, Rep. Fontenot's point that we would ensure that those law-abiding citizens would be the ones who are carrying in this particular area of town, which, as I mentioned before, is that most trafficked and most crowded area that we have in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Wiley. We now have, other members with questions in the queue. We have Glade Bilby in support, wishing to speak, Chico Yancey in support, wishing to speak, and Bruce Riley in support, wishing to speak. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Councilwoman. Did I hear somebody waving? Mr. Yancey waved? Okay, thank you. And do we not see Mr. Riley? Okay, if we could have Kohanda, is that Corley or Conley, present wishing to speak, come to the table? Kolanda? Okay, I don't see, so we'll go ahead and put that in the record. And we have former Senator Representative Wesley Bishop. If you want to come to the table, present. As the designee of New Orleans City Councilman Oliver Thomas requesting to speak. Sir, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to support Alonzo's bill 498. My name is Glade Bilby. I'm a commissioner of the French Quarter Management District. I'm president of French Quarter Citizens. As I've heard here today, a lot of you are aware of some of the issues that persist in effective oversight of New Orleans and some of the issues that we have. To that end, we really do appreciate the efforts of Governor Landry to bring some direction and insight into how things are done in New Orleans. The recent crime session resulted in much-needed focus on some of these issues that have been allowed to spiral out of control in the French Quarter. I say this as a 40-year resident of the French Quarter and not just as one of the 19 million tourists and visitors that come to America's most historic city. Representative Knox's Bill 498 to carve out a firearm zone for the entertainment district and the French Quarter is just another tool that will help law enforcement in protecting our residents and visitors. As you all have seen from the video and as evidenced this past weekend, it seems like with the shooting of 11 people and the murder of one, we almost have a permitless carry in existence right now in the French Quarter. It's unfortunate that when you think about it, any law that would allow a permit or a non-permit would not have stopped this senseless act of violence. But allowing the people to carry a weapon without a permit into such a target-rich area as the French Quarter really does not help us and makes it very difficult for law enforcement to do their job. Let's face it, the job of being a policeman today has litigation, consent decrees, PIB investigations, and a general negative attitude towards law enforcement. For the cop on the street who is trained to see concealed weapons and deal with dangerous felons, this does nothing to help them. It merely makes it their job more difficult and dangerous. For this reason, I'd like to urge you all to support the carve-out for the French Quarter for the security of the tourists and the residents today, supporting House Bill 498. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I don't see any questions in the queue. Good afternoon. Former Representative Bishop.
Great. Good afternoon, Rep. Villio. My name is Wesley Bishop, and on today I stand before you as the Director of Policy and Government Affairs for New Orleans City Councilman Oliver Thomas, who represents District E, which is the Lower 9th Ward, and New Orleans East. But probably more importantly for today's conversation, serves as the Chair of the Criminal Justice Committee with the New Orleans City Council. And so when we heard that on today that we're going to be a period of 11 bills that were going to come forward, in particular the bill that Representative Knox had, we want to come up and make sure that we add our voice to the chorus of folks who are actually going to support it. I think what Representative Knox is putting forward, I think is a phenomenal bill for the city of New Orleans, as have Chief Kirkpatrick in her absence, Deputy Chief Gernon said, as Council colleague Helena Moreno said, you have a situation whereby exemptions and carve-outs for the city of New Orleans are important for many of the things that you have said already without any preemption by any place else, along with the fact that one of the world-class cities in the state of Louisiana is in fact Gonzales, Louisiana. The second one is the city of New Orleans. There are very few places in the state of Louisiana, but more so than that, there are very few places in the entire world that draws the kind of individuals and the amount of visitors that the city of New Orleans has. While I was sitting here a second ago, I realized the number of things that happen just within this 2-mile area that we're talking about. Super Bowl, Mardi Gras, Sugar Bowl, New Orleans Bowl, Final Four, both men and women, Essence Fest, Jazz Fest, French Quarter Fest that I was at just last week, the Convention Center, the Superdome, Smoothie King Center, and of course Mardi Gras. And that doesn't count the day-to-day operations that just happened, all of the conventions that occur in the city of New Orleans that draw a ton of people that are actually there. This carve-out, I think, is important, quite honestly. The city of New Orleans would like a carve-out for the entire city. But in the absence of this body having the will to do that, we would love to see a carve-out for particular places in the city of New Orleans so we can have a situation whereby if you take a look at the New Orleans Police Department over the last year, there is no question. The city of New Orleans Police Department is the best police department in the world when it talks about dealing with massive crowd control on a regular basis. There is no doubt about that particular piece. We're simply asking that we be given the opportunity to have exemptions or carve-out to give the folks who the 350,000 people who live in New Orleans elected to represent them. Help us with that. We want to work with any partnership that we have with the governor, with the state senate, with the state house. I got a little experience working with the state senate and the state house. So I know how important it is to try and make that happen. So that's simply where we are on today. And once again, we wanted to come up on today to add our voice to supporters. And on a personal note, Councilman Oliver Thomas was personal friends with Dario King.
Thank you, Rep. Bishop. Chairman Bacala, did you get out the queue?
As I look at the crime data again, everything seems to be relatively flat, up and down. One thing that, and I think we probably would all agree that at the root of the crime problem that you speak of in New Orleans, would you agree that drugs have a big part of that? Addictions, drug addicts, other crimes?
Was it? Are you ready? Is that towards me?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Senator.
Not a problem. I was also a criminal justice professor for 20-some-odd years. And while that is probably a part of it, I don't know if there's any one particular issue that you can actually talk about. I think economics is also a vital part of that particular piece. But I would agree that probably plays a part of it, as it does in the other 66 parishes in the state of Louisiana.
It does. And I think one thing I want to note, because this is about the safety of the city of New Orleans, y'all's recorded drug offenses, which are basically, that's driven by the police to determine that. 2010, over 2,163 felony drug cases were identified by NOPD. Last year it was 200. It went from 2,000 to 200. It would seem to me that one of the things that y'all need to focus on as much as guns in the French Quarter is drugs, and it looks like it's 200 means it's almost just incidental. I just call that to your attention. I know you're a policy guy down there, and y'all drive the narrative. But when you quit enforcing drug laws, I'm thinking 200 means there's not a great deal when it went to 2000, then other problems follow. I think if you look back at New York City, when the crime was reduced, it was, they called it the broken window theory. Let's enforce the small enforce the small problems, we won't have big problems, and that played out there. I would hope as we talk about crime, and this is a crime bill and a reduction in crime bill, that we would recognize that we got to get a lot of stuff under control. And I would invite your comment on, if you have a comment on why we just seem to not do it like we used to.
If I may reflect on that, I think it's a comprehensive effort by all of those parts to make it work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rep. Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Representative Knox, I just want to thank you for bringing the bill. I live in Monroe, Ouachita Parish. We too have a problem, and we're trying to resolve, shootings and crimes and the violence. But I want to thank you all for just knowing what is needed that will help you in your district. And like you said, we're different. And of course, I love coming to New Orleans, my family. But the main thing is in that area, just knowing that I'm safe. It makes a difference. But I think what we're trying to do is to allow locals to decide what is best and how we can help you reduce this crime and so forth. So thank you for bringing the bill. And at the appropriate time, I would like to move it favorable.
Thank you, Rep. Thank you, Rep. Moore. We have no more questions in the queue. We have a late card wishing to speak in support from Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office. Perhaps you ran in and filled out your card because I can't read your name.
Melvin Howard.
Melvin, that does not say Melvin Howard. But come on, that does not. But come on up to the table, please.
Good morning.
We're actually in good afternoon now, but good afternoon, sir.
Well, it was morning when I started out
I'm
early.
sure it was. It
Thank
was
you.
for us too. Thanks.
Thank you. My name is Melvin Howard, and I am a deputy chief for the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office, and I'm here representing Sheriff Susan Hudson, who is presently out of town. I've served in the capacity of a law enforcement officer approximately close to 40 years with NOPD. 10 of those 40 years I spent in the Central Business District, French Quarter area. I was the executive officer there for a number of years, and I've been with the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office just at about 13 years. During my tenure, I trained quite a few personnel, law enforcement personnel, on how to identify those persons that were carrying weapons in that area, particularly retired State Police Superintendent Terry Landry, who I think is a member of this body, and the newly elected Sheriff of Caddo Parish, Henry Whitehorn. I taught them and other state troopers how to identify persons carrying weapons in the area that we refer as the Central Business District. It's commonly the acronym CBD. That encompasses the boundaries of Claiborne Avenue to the river, Elysian Fields Avenue to Howard Avenue. I'm here today to ask the committee to please consider making the CBD of New Orleans a gun-free zone. Now, I'm sure everyone understands that the CBD is a tourist hub, and which I refer to as a target-rich environment as it relates to armed robberies and car burglaries. I want to add also that I have, this past Mardi Gras, the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office processed over 300 gun arrests, over 200 by NOPD, and over 60 by Louisiana State Police. With that, I personally myself, when I worked that area almost 13 years ago, commissioned a pickpocket gun task force. With that, I taught body language and sumpake, which is Latin for whites of the eyes, which is brought on by stress that none of us can control. If you feel threatened, automatically your eyes, you see the whites of the eyes. That's what that means. Also, we knew the bad people and the bad people knew us. Even though we worked in plain clothes, if they're carrying a weapon, their body language, they would move that weapon with their elbow, subconsciously.
Thank you, sir. We have a 3-minute rule, sorry. I do not, Rep. Walters had, I think, just gave you some additional time, probably. Rep. Walters.
Thank you, Chair Villarreal. That's right, Sheriff. Can you continue this story? Because this is pretty interesting, and I think we all need to hear what you're saying.
Thank you. This past Mardi Gras, I'd like to, first let me circle back. At the time I commissioned a number of, I think it was 10 officers from NOPD, we had shootings every night on the parade routes, particularly in the area of the CBD, which was the Canal Street area. We refer to that area as the neutral ground where the buses run and the streetcars today. This past year, we had not one shooting on the parade route. And that's due to the assistance of various agencies, partnering agencies, such as Tangipahoa, Natchitoches Parish, Jefferson Parish, Tangipahoa, Lafourche Parish deputies, just to name a few. And they've worked under the auspices of Sheriff Hudson for obvious reasons. So I'm going to close very quickly and say I pray that this committee strongly consider making this area in New Orleans a gun-free zone. Any questions? I'll try to feel them best.
Rep. Ventrella.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you, sir, for your testimony. Are you aware that this state has become what we're known as a constitutional carry state?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Are you concerned in any way that this bill, now that how Representative Knox has made it to specifically apply to concealed carry permit holders can carry, but others can't. Are you concerned that this bill can increase incarceration rates in your city and arrests and additionally pretextual stops and targeting? Are you concerned in any way with that?
We're always concerned about that. Yes, ma'am. We are.
Yeah. So, I mean, and especially for travelers, let's just say somebody's coming in from out of town, somebody from Shreveport comes to New Orleans. Are you concerned in any way with these, with a law-abiding citizen carrying their weapon outside of these very specific boundaries that they are well within their right to do so now based off of the governor signing of constitutional carry, and they come and they cross the boundary of this street? Are you concerned in any way that they may be targeted or confused? Are you concerned about that?
Yes, I am. Very much so. Remember, we process, Orleans Parish Sheriff, so we process all arrests that are made in Orleans Parish. So yes, I am concerned about that.
And do you think that this change would allow a targeting of specific members of the community in any way? Because now, if the gun that was legal 5 inches over now becomes illegal, are you concerned in any way that that may result in targeting of specific individuals?
I can best answer that. The bad guys all know each other, and they know each other carry guns, and that doesn't stop them from shooting at each other.
And when you say bad guys, do you mean people that potentially have a criminal record?
People that have criminal intent, not just a record, the intent to do something.
Right, but do you think that those people are going to follow the law regardless?
They don't follow the law now.
Right. So thank you for your time.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Rep. Ventrella. Rep. Fontenot is going to take the chair momentarily. We are finished with those wishing to speak in support. We do have 38 cards in support not wishing to speak. We have red cards in opposition wishing to speak. Mr. Everett Bodion, Devin McVeigh, and Barrett Kendrick. If y'all want to come take the table, please.
All right, whoever would like to go first, just give your name for the record.
Hey, good afternoon. Again, my name is Everett Bodion. I'm a vice president of the Louisiana Shooting Association and attorney here in Baton Rouge and Gazelle handgun instructor. I may echo some of my previous testimony on one of the other bills that creating the expanded definition of a firearm-free zone makes it very difficult to instruct people who are trying to follow the law as to the specifics of what the law entails. Reading these definitions in this bill of major entertainment district, this is an inadministrable definition that is subject to constant change. If a stadium is built somewhere, for example, that would cause a municipality to suddenly be included in this definition, and that is very difficult for people to actually stay apprised of. Secondly, the existing definitions, for example, the downtown development district, reads much like a legal description of property that I read it earlier, and I have a hard time visualizing where exactly that begins and ends. And as we had some earlier testimony, most of the city of New Orleans is already an existing firearm-free zone. So I don't really understand why making slightly more of it a firearm-free zone is going to significantly change the problem that is already still a problem with the existing ability to enforce this law in most places. As the representative from the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office just said, the bad guys don't follow the law. So again, this will only enjoin the law-abiding citizens who are attempting to follow the law as closely as possible from being able to do so. I don't believe the city of New Orleans should be treated differently from the rest of the state. I don't believe the citizens of New Orleans who live in these areas should be abridged of their constitutional rights that we just worked so hard to pass. And just to address some of the points raised by the New Orleans Police Department, the map that you showed earlier, Representative Fontenot, he testified that he's not familiar with that map. Well, anyone who is carrying a concealed handgun lawfully has to be familiar with that map. We have to know that map. If law enforcement can't even stay apprised of the map as is, I don't understand why we should have the duty that we already have, that we manage, and that people will have to stay apprised of with the current constitutional carry language, which is not even in effect yet, and yet the problem that we're complaining of still exists. Lastly, I have a problem with the statement that there's no reasonable suspicion to make stops with the constitutional carry law. We've had concealed handgun permits since the 1990s, so people can already have a concealed handgun lawfully in many places in New Orleans. So just seeing somebody possibly carrying a gun should not already rise to the level of reasonable suspicion unless there is some sort of ulterior motive in doing so. And lastly, the constitutional carry statute has a duty to inform law enforcement. If law enforcement approaches anyone in their official capacity, that person is obligated to inform that officer that they're carrying. And if they're carrying unlawfully, the officer can determine that as a part of that stop.
Thank you, Mr. Bodian. Rep. Walters for a question.
Thank you, Acting Chair. Excuse me, sir, are you a resident of New Orleans?
Not anymore. I grew up in the New Orleans area.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next speaker.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Barrett Kendrick, and I sit on the board of the Louisiana Shooting Association. You started, Representative Knox, with playing a video of, a family member of one of the victims, right? And I don't want anyone to confuse, me standing up for the rights of somebody means that I'm somehow, pro-violence, I should say, pro-violence. We're on the same team with all that, right? We all want to make sure that we're preventing violence. And I also want to recognize that the city of New Orleans has worked very hard to be able to bring down some of that crime over the past couple of years, right? There was a horrible spike, and I believe in 2022 it has come down. But the fact is, that it is still there. I was just looking at this map, and I tried to only have some of the violent crimes on the map that I pulled this morning from New Orleans website, and I see things in this area like sexual assault and rape and homicide and aggravated battery and numerous other crimes that have continued to take place over the past year. And even the shooting that took place outside of the Republic bar here a week ago. It was already illegal, for the shooter to carry the firearm if that person did not have a concealed carry permit under current law. It was illegal for the person to point the gun at other people. It was illegal for the person to shoot the firearm inside of the city limits of New Orleans unless it was self-defense. It was illegal for the person to shoot others, right? And there were already all of these crimes in existence. And as pointed out, there are numerous firearm-free zones that exist throughout this area and throughout the city of New Orleans. And highly likely the same individual had to traverse one of those firearm-free zones to be able to get to the point that they were, outside of the Republic that night. And I just don't know that this creating or expanding more of the firearm-free zones is going to do what we all want. We all want the violent crime to go down. But I do think it's important that we stand up for the rights of the individuals that want to be able to carry guns there. As pointed out, there's 15 or so million people that visit the city of New Orleans every single year. I visit the city of New Orleans. I do live on the North Shore, but I've visited the city of New Orleans for many, many years, and I've done so less over the past several years because of the concern of the violent crime there. And I don't want to take away individual right to be able to carry a firearm inside of those areas for the purpose of personal defense. Thank you, but I'm available if you have questions.
You have no questions, Mr. Kendrick. If we can get some other witnesses to the table. Representative Knox, you mind letting us get in this 3 so we can expedite the process? 3 witnesses at a time? You mind? So I can get 3 witnesses?
Sure.
Devin McVeigh, Chris Patron, and Dan Zelenko. All right, sir, you can go ahead and begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Devin McVeigh. I'm the Louisiana State Director for American Action Fund. I'm speaking today in strong opposition to this bill. This very committee, just 2 months ago, voted to pass constitutional carry. And before this bill has even been put into place, we're now trying to create gun ban zones. Designating areas as gun-free zones do nothing to deter criminals from doing illegal activity. If it did, then let's designate I-10 as a car-free zone so we can stop DUIs. Gun ban zones violate the Second Amendment, and they are dangerous for law-abiding citizens. All this does is attract criminals to attack people who they know are defenseless because of the government. According to the Crime Prevention Research Center, 94% of mass public shootings happen in gun-free zones. 94%. My wife should not have to be a professional boxer in order to protect herself in the French Quarter. I urge you to vote against this bill and respect the nearly 2 million Louisiana citizens who are law-abiding gun owners in the state.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Patron?
Good afternoon. I'm here again, Chris Petron with the Firearm Professionals of Louisiana. The amendment that Representative Knox made to this bill actually gave me pause for consideration. Well, that was a good move, saying that the permit people, because I'm a permit carrier, I'm a CHP, the permit carriers can carry in the area. But it still has one problem left with that, and that is that this still makes a patchwork of law that people are not going to be informed about. Unsuspecting people are going to be found violating the law. They're not going to know that this is the case. Not if they're from Gonzales, maybe. But the other thing is that Representative Helena, you made the important point about the maps of the gun-free zones and all the crimes committed in them. Making a gun-free zone is a law that will affect law-abiding citizens, not criminals. The criminals are going to go do it anyway. So passing another law is not what you need. What we really need is enforcement. And prosecutorial enforcement. So that's my point.
Thank you, Ms. Petrone. And just for the record, I think the amendment added the exception in 1495.2, and the current statute doesn't have any exceptions. I think it may be in the wrong section of the law. But Mr. Zelenka?
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Dan Zelenka, and I'm the president of the Louisiana Shooting Association. Much of what I said concerning House Bill 750 applies here. It's the same type of gun-free zone. It fits under the same statutory scheme. The definition of major entertainment district in this case is extremely broad, and I don't find it to be well defined. Even if we limit it to the French Quarter, the downtown development district, and the convention center areas, it's a huge swath of the city. This would become a zone where law-abiding citizens would be completely defenseless. And looking at these areas on a map, I find that they're areas that I think are quite dangerous already. I do appreciate the amendment and what it attempts to do. Like Representative Fontenot said, I don't think it fulfills that attempt. I think that the prohibition in 1495.2 is probably still effective against concealed carry permit holders. The other problem with the amendment is it does not provide a carve-out for permit holders from other states. Now, we have reciprocity with 38 other states. Those people have permits under those state laws. They come to Louisiana thinking that their permit is valid because the state police website says it's valid. And they go into New Orleans and suddenly discover that it's not illegal carrying of a firearm, okay, which is $14.95, which is a misdemeanor with a maximum of 6 months and a $500 fine. Oh, no, it's a 5-year felony. And I think that we're going to have problems with that if we pass this bill. I think we'll have problems with people who are carrying, law-abiding citizens carrying under constitutional carry. I think we're going to have problems with people with permits from out of state. And I can't see anything about this bill that is good for law-abiding citizens. The other thing I wanted to mention, I mean, we've talked about murders and whatnot. When I was a young lawyer, there was an associate, I believe at the firm of Nesser, King and LeBlanc, who was robbed downtown in a parking lot, and they stuffed him in the trunk of his car, and they took him out to Almanaster Avenue and shot him in the head and burned his car up, okay? That zone, or that parking lot, is in this gun-free zone. So that person would, today, or at least as of July 4th, would have the right to have his firearm, okay? Under this law, he would not.
Thank you, Mr. Zelenka. Representative Walters for a question.
Thank you, Acting Chair. Mr. Zelenka, what do you find ambiguous about the definition for a major entertainment district? And it reads, a major entertainment district means the public spaces within an area that traditionally hosts more than 15 million people annually, contains a venue for sports entertainment with a capacity for more than 75,000 people, a convention center with more than 1 million square feet, and it, goes on to the second page, because now you're not attacking the author, but you're also attacking the staff who helped the author prepare this bill. So what about this definition?
Well, I'm not
ambiguous?
attacking anybody. I'm an attorney. I read this, okay? So a person, to comply with the law, needs to know how many visitors show up in a particular city. A person needs to know, they probably know that there is a sports venue, but needs to know the capacity of the stadium. The person then needs to know if there is a exhibition center of more than 1 million square feet. But it goes on, okay? They also need to know if there's a casino or not, and whether or not it's land-based. And then finally, it says, this shall include the following areas, all of which are set out by statute. It doesn't say
it only includes those areas. And I sat down with a map and with the literal property descriptions of what the French Quarter is, the Downtown Development District, and the Convention Center. And when you sit down, I mean, I did real estate work. I had trouble figuring out what the Convention Center area was. I noticed that the Downtown Development Center it's the whole CBD. I mean, it is, when I was practicing law, it would have been where I traveled every day, you know. And then the French Quarter is fairly easy to figure out because, you know, it stops at Esplanade, it stops on, I guess, Rampart Canal and the river, okay? That's easy one to figure out. But, I mean, does it include parade routes? Because that's an entertainment zone, you know? Does it include them only during Mardi Gras? Does it include them 100, you know, all the year round? I just found that the definition was, if you're going to charge somebody with a felony, you need to tell me exactly where I can't carry. That map that Representative Fontenot showed, okay? That's a requirement of the law that that map be in the conveyance office of all cities, actually all parishes and cities, okay?
Okay. Thank you for clarifying, Mrs. Lincoln.
Okay.
All right, there are no other questions for the witnesses. Last two witnesses to the table is going to be Kelby Senor, National Rifle Association, and there is no name, but Louisiana Citizens Advocacy Group.
Chris Alexander.
Someone else filled it out, thanks. Mr. Alexander, you can go first.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Acting Chairman. This is Chris Alexander, Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group. I'm not going to repeat any points that were made earlier. I just want to remind the committee of what you probably already know. We just got finished passing SB 1 in the state of Louisiana, and which establishes the fundamental constitutional right for permitless constitutional concealed carry in Louisiana. So permitless concealed carry is on the same constitutional footing now in Louisiana as permitted carry. Both are fundamental constitutional rights. And that is for the purpose of providing people an opportunity to defend themselves in public. So even though there was an effort to amend the bill, obviously, and allow for concealed carry permit in these otherwise prohibited areas, it discriminates against permitless, law-abiding concealed carriers. I can't tell you the number of people who have contacted us who are permitless concealed carriers who say, Chris, we don't want to be on a government list. We don't want to have to go seek the government's permission to conceal carry. And there's no requirement to secure that right for law-abiding citizens. And I think our founding fathers would be absolutely shocked even at the idea that a law-abiding citizen would have to go seek the government's permission to conceal carry or ever have to have a permit. So that's our position on the bill, and we strongly oppose it. Thank you.
Mr. Alexander. I don't see any questions in the queue. Kelby Senor with NRA. Mr. Senor.
Thank you, Chair Lady Billio. My name is Kelby Senor. I'm the National Rifle Association State Director for Louisiana. Our members and NRA strongly oppose House Bill 498 for similar reasons I brought up on House Bill 750, but a lot of my points have already been taken, but some of the things I would like to bring up are that this creates a gun-free zone in the French Quarter, and I do appreciate Representative Knox's amendment to allow permit holders to carry. However, Louisiana is not unique in having cities or neighborhoods where people gather, and in certain areas they are allowed to openly drink, such as on Bourbon Street. Further, many of these locations are in constitutional carry states, and they do not discriminate against those exercising their right to carry, whether they are permitted to do so or not. Some of those examples are in Gainesville, Florida, we have the Arts, Culture, and Entertainment District. There's no restriction on permitless concealed carriers. It's a constitutional carry state. We have in Tampa, Florida, you have the Tampa River Walk. There's no restriction on any constitutional carry there either. Savannah, Georgia, you have River Street. It's just like Bourbon Street. No restrictions on permitless concealed carriers. Kansas City, Missouri, you have the Power and Light District. It is also a constitutional carry state. There is no restriction on permitless concealed carriers. Additionally, New Orleans is unfortunately one of the most dangerous cities in America, and I know that crime has decreased there. However, we have places like Chicago, strictest gun laws in the nation, and there's still crime rampant there. This is going to do nothing but restrict law-abiding citizens' ability to defend themselves, and that is why we strongly oppose this bill. On top of that, it's a restriction defined by a person or an object's location in relation to an imaginary line, an arbitrary boundary, and it does not account for a person's intent. So with that being said, I would ask that you respectfully oppose House Bill 498. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Senior. We don't have any questions in the queue. We have 22 cards in opposition not wishing to speak that we will make a part of the record. Representative Cox, if you want to close on, Representative Knox, if you want to close on your bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Helena Moreno would like to say a word.
Thank you. I really think that there were some good points made, particularly on the reciprocity of the permits that was talked about. Obviously, some good comments made about making sure that the amendment that we put on, that was, done correctly. I'll also say this, that we've been working with Senator Kirk Talbot on the Senate side, who has a bill now similar to this. What his bill does is also requires a permit to carry concealed in the French Quarter. Obviously, this area is bigger. But because of what I've just discussed and talking with Deputy Chief Gernon, we're wondering if we could have an opportunity to get with Senator Talbot and kind of work through some of these particular issues and work through the reciprocity issue with the concealed carry permit and try to get things in better shape. And obviously, I've been in this body before, but if it's possible to potentially voluntarily defer this so we can have the opportunity to work with Senator Talbot a little bit closer on this, obviously that's the motion that you would make, Representative, but I think that could be potentially helpful.
Thank you, Councilwoman Moreno. That is certainly a motion that the representative, the author, can make if he chooses to. So Representative Knox, what are your wishes?
That would be my wish, Madam Chair. Councilmember Helena Moreno and I have discussed this, and I'm all about making this bill in the best posture possible. The amendment that's currently on there shows my willingness to try to make that happen. I've listened to all the comments that have been made. I'm certain I probably won't appease most of them, but I do want to get their concerns and have them reflected so that this bill can be in the best posture.
Thank you. We have a motion. I believe we had a motion on the table by Representative Moore to report the instrument as amended. I understand. Let's take care of that first. Representative Moore has withdrawn her motion. So now we have a motion by Representative Knox to voluntarily defer. Cox and Knox.
They say we look alike. The same thing happens in municipal.
We have that motion to voluntarily defer. Do we have any objections to voluntarily deferring? Seeing and hearing none, that instrument will be voluntarily deferred. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee.